Tuesday, and welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy Chad Fellers, we have casual talk about the challenges and successes in medical affairs with the most exciting and impactful professionals in pharma. As always, we have another great one for you today, so stick around.
Welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles. I am your host, Chad Fellers, with my amazing, beautiful, smart, I can't think of another descriptor right now, but
talented, phenomenal.
Talented, yes, Mary Morton.
Yes,
how are you, Mary?
Yes.
I am terrific as always. How are you?
Doing really well. I actually just, I'm coming off back surgery, feeling, well, let's see. I would just say, it
really
took care of some of
good.
the issues, but yeah, there's parts of me that feel really good right now. So we don't know where this conversation
As a clinical pharmacist, I know exactly what you're talking about.
is going to go right now.
No pain.
But I can tell you, I'm happy today, because of our guest that we're going to introduce here in just a second. I think I say it every time. I'm really excited about our conversations because I know that the listeners are going to have so much great takeaways and learnings from this, but I really mean it this time too.
He meant it all the other times too, y'all.
I did mean it all the other times, yes. But this is one of my dear friends that I cannot wait for listeners to get to know a little bit, Marsie Ross. And so, Mary, why don't you introduce our amazing guest and let's get going.
I was actually a little afraid you were going to take this from me this time. So, Marsie Ross is a PharmD, mother of 2 super kids. And maybe we'll get her to talk about how amazing those 2 are. But I've known Marsie since 2004. I actually went back to check. So since I'm only 39, that means I've known you longer than I haven't, right? Is that how that works?
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as a recruiter, I feel like I've placed you about 4 times over that period of time. I think the only other person I've placed that many times has now become a recruiter herself. Marsie is going to have so many awesome nuggets for you guys today. I think it's for as long as I've known Marsie, and we've talked many times over the years about what's next for her and what more can she do. And she is one of those people that I feel like kind of crams about 30 hours into a 24-hour day. I don't know how she does it. But after several years as an MSL, she is now, and correct me if I don't have the title correct, Director, Head of Alliance Development and Public Policy.
Yes, Senior Director, but who's counting?
Oh, who's counting? No, yes, Senior Director. I am fixing that. My apologies. And if you're wondering what that role is all about, you're in for a treat because, she's going to tell you guys all about what she does. But first, Chad didn't know I was going to do this. I'm going to get back to something we started out with when we first started the podcast, and that's I'm going to hit Marsie with a couple of quick fire questions.
I love it.
So our listeners can get to know her a little bit better.
But no cussing, right?
No what?
We can bleep it if we must.
and before you ask the question,
my mom might watch. I won't.
Okay.
For the record, you've not placed me once, Mary. You've placed her 4 times, and you've not placed me once.
She placed you here on this podcast.
Oh,
yes,
listen,
you're welcome.
I don't need y'all ganging up. Okay, all right. Get to your questions,
but
Mary.
I've placed probably a dozen people for you. Does that count for anything?
I mean,
Mary's always working
for
you, Mary.
That's right.
I mean,
that's
right.
Chad.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, back to your
we're
questions.
One and the same, whatever. Okay, first question. What was your first job ever? Like not after pharmacy school. What was the first job you ever had?
Wendy's.
All
Can I tell you a story about why?
Please.
Okay. So as the most intelligent amazing 15-year-old that I was. I was unlicensed. But a friend of mine who was a grade ahead of me got her license, and her parents bought her like this kick around car. So in our infinite wisdom, we decided that I would drive the car while she went to go see her boyfriend. So fast forward 5 minutes later, when I have crashed the car into a pole. I know. So my parents, I was safe, so they were happy I was safe, but they were livid, of course. And so the car it was a kick around, so it was like maybe $1,500. And ultimately, once the parents got together, they decided that we would pay for the car, she and I. So I had to get a job. I was like, what do you mean I have to pay? I don't understand. Like, I'm living my fabulous life. I'm spending time with my friends. I have no time for work. So I got a job at the Wendy's in right in our community. And I came home smelling like burgers every night. It was so bad.
But do you dip your fries in the Frosty? Did you ever do that? That I'm curious about that.
You have to do that.
Yeah, that's sort of a rule.
It's like it's like a thing. Yes.
Okay.
To this day, if I can't go inside of a Wendy's.
Trauma.
It's trauma, childhood trauma. But that's
get
lesson
it.
learned. Yeah. So that was my first
All
job.
right.
That's why I know it like this.
So do your boys know that story?
Oh, my parents tell this story to pretty much everyone to this day, and I am in my 50s. No, everyone knows.
I can't believe I'm just hearing it for the first time.
You should meet my parents. You would have known this story 20 years ago when we met.
All right. Second question.
Okay.
What is your favorite place to go on vacation?
It used to be Miami. But right now, I would say it's been Barbados for the last 5 or 6 years. It's a place that me and my husband go that we won't take our kids. Like, to me, the best vacation is when you could be free. To not be someone's mother.
All right.
And I like that. So I love Barbados. I think it's beautiful and it's so cultural. It's a great place to
list.
Yeah. With kids, it's not a vacation. It's a trip.
It's not. It's work. Yeah, it's a trip. Yeah.
It's a trip.
We're taking a trip.
Not a vacation.
All right.
Yeah.
2 more questions.
That's a good point.
What's the last song you listened to?
Oh, the last song I listened to was, it was just this morning in the car. It's by Mary, and I don't remember the song. I'm going to send it to you. If I start singing it, it might mess up. All your viewers will desert you. But it was a great song. I've been into inspirational songs, but there's this group called Mary, 2 sisters who are gospel singers. And me and the boys used to listen to it all the time when they were little in the car. And with I have a son going to college as early as June, we think. And I've been very nostalgic. So I've been listening to I know.
All right.
She's weepy.
Last question.
She's weepy.
No, we got to get off of that because you can't be weepy.
I can't be weepy.
Yes. Last question.
Okay.
What is your go-to emoji when you're texting?
Oh, definitely right now is the the one that's did you know there was one? First it's like you're right now.
Okay.
It's like you could do it or this one. Those are
the grim. I think they call it the grimace, but I use it for like
when it's like
okay.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like the oops? Like oops?
That one. It could be oops or it could be like
I like
sneaky.
That one. Yeah.
It could be that one.
I love it.
Sneaky.
I love it.
I don't know if it's sneaky.
If anybody's curious, my go-to emoji is usually the eye roll.
Oh,
the one where the little emojis going like that.
So when we text back and forth about Chad, that's the one you always send me.
That's right. Right. Oh my gosh.
Or like the one where you go, "Why is Chad doing whatever?" And my emoji is the shrug.
It's Chad.
Just kidding.
Chadism.
Yes.
We love Chad.
Chad,
wow.
What's your go-to emoji?
I don't know. I'm actually I like to do the memojis sometimes just for a little shock and awe, right? So
I love them. Yeah. Yours is a good one.
Well, Marsie,
Oh, guess what?
now that oh my
the last
God,
emoji you sent me was the grimace.
Yeah.
It
Was
was. It
it?
was the grimace. How about that? Okay. All right.
I don't know how
So
to
now,
transition. How do we transition
um,
from this?
well, I can see that you're grimacing now because I won't shut up. But I'm gonna let you take over here.
So I know, yeah, okay. I'll get into this real quick. Let me give additional context. So I have known Marsie. You share with Marsie, knowing her since 2004. I guess I've known Marsie, what, almost 8 or 9 years now. I guess.
Yeah, we're about there.
We worked together at Harmony Biosciences. We worked at Harmony Biosciences. Not only did I learn from her from a scientific standpoint, but learned so many different ways. We had some great conversations about lots of different things. And I can tell you I'm a better person for knowing her and still having the relationship with her. And she's got an amazing journey. And I know that's one of the things we strive to really inform others within medical affairs. There's so many different opportunities. It's not just about being an MSL and becoming a director. That you can do that. You can become a manager, but people management may not be the best fit for people, and there are other things. And so, how do we find, especially as leaders, how do we find and be able to tap into our team's giftings to put them where they want to be, really both for the benefit of themselves and for the company as well too. And so that's why I'm excited about learning more about your journey and you sharing today about where you are today, what you do, why it matters, and then even just kind of how you got here. But before that, we like to always start with the key takeaways of what we're going to be talking about today. So with that, would you mind sharing just a few of the things that you want our listeners to walk away with?
First of all, I'm so excited. Thank you guys for this vision and this, what I call zany brainy ideas, to come together and have these conversations. So many of us can feel lost in our profession, feel lost and feeling like we should be doing more or doing other things or watch other people excel and feel like I don't want to do that, but should I be doing something? So these MSL Chronicles are so important. I think this field has grown tremendously over the last 20 years when I first entered into this world. And there's so much to do. It's so competitive and there's a lot. So thank you so much for this platform. One of the things in terms of takeaways, I think, is being able to understand your impact that you can have outside of just your department. I think that is key. As you're thinking about your career, thinking about what you contribute, thinking about it outside of just your role. How does your role impact the entire organization? Also thinking about relationships, like as MSL, that's the foundation of who we are. And really thinking about that into how that relationship can impact the organization. Sometimes as scientists, we can hoard these relationships, right? Because they're so precious. It's like money, it's like, that's our commerce, right? These relationships are how we identify ourselves as, an MSL, how you're able to break down those barriers with these key opinion leaders and build relationships and be seen as a trusted advisor. And so we use that, and sometimes we're afraid to share it. And I think that is actually the road and the key to showing tremendous value in the organization. And so those are two of the takeaways. The third takeaway I would like to have is to always keep a mindset of curiosity and contentment, which is like the balance of life. It's like I struggle with that all the time. Like I'm super curious about who I am and growing and learning and doing all the things and curious about what are they doing over there and how can I learn more? But I also am maintaining a sense of contentment with my life and who I am in the present, which is, hard to do.
Yeah, I'm especially intrigued on that one because if you are a really naturally curious person like you are, and I'm definitely that way too, it's I feel like that there's not enough time in the day to do and learn all the things I want to do. So I can't wait to hear about how you manage to find that balance.
I don't know if it sometimes is imbalanced, but then when I'm imbalanced, it's really a trigger for me to start to identify why I'm doing something and really get to the heart of me. Like, am I doing it because I just feel like I need to be busy, or is it moving me towards something? And yes, it feels overwhelming, but it's moving me toward a goal that I intentionally set.
Okay.
Marcie, thanks so much for sharing those takeaways. And those are definitely authentic, knowing who you are, thinking about you're always curious, you're driven by relationship development. I see that every day that I'm around you, that both at work and then even we're just connecting just as friends now too, right? So that curiosity is the thing that I think is the number one trait of, really, we've talked about this a lot of an MSL.
I think as a scientist, I am naturally curious, but I'm also goal driven. And so one thing is being curious, and being curious about the process is not my strong suit. I struggle with that. And I'm leaning more into that. So I am part of not being curious about the process creates a fixed mindset. And I think that it's almost like this duality where you're curious about the science, you love it, you're curious about conversations, you can go with it, but really you have a end in mind. So sometimes we can have a fixed destination, and if it doesn't turn out the way we have already imagined it, it takes away all that effort of curiosity. And to be honest, that's exactly where I am in my life right now, is just really leaning into being a process person, also being a goal oriented destination person, but not so as much, because as I age, I find that I don't want to be fixed. I don't. And I think that it's easy to do as you move through your lifespan. I want to say as you get older, but I won't say it. In my 50s, I feel like I'm looking at things differently. And I am concerned about becoming someone who has a fixed mindset. And I don't think that will serve me and my personality if I grow in that direction.
Ooh, a lot of wisdom coming from. So, okay, let's go back. I want to hear about your journey. So we were MSLs together. All of a sudden you started getting this itch to start thinking about, you were always connecting with people across our departments, et cetera. So tell us a little bit about your journey into corporate affairs, how you ended up getting there, because I know this position was not even created when you were there, right? It was one of those things that you had to create in partnership and develop, correct?
Yes. So in terms of my journey, I spent most of my career, just almost 20 years now, in medical affairs. I'm a PharmD. I am a clinician, right? I love the practical applied science, less so the basic science, right? But I love even the thought of being a pharmacist. I am in relation with the community. I love being across the counter, when I was in the pharmacy. And so I took that mindset into everything I did in medical. I always felt that relationships were the most important commodity. And I always created relationships that could serve value to other people in the organization. It was like, if you have a best friend, you want your people to know someone that you like, oh my gosh, meet such and such, or, you find the best in your KOLs. It is about the science, but it's about the person. And it's about what they're doing, how they're contributing to the community that we both serve. And so I think that going in originally, of course, when you first start out, you want to show your big brain off. Like, I know this stuff. I'm scientist. I'm doctor such and such. And you feel that is what you should lean into. And that is, I think, going against the grain. I did that early on, and I just started to establish strong relationships. And in those relationships, you get to know people so much better. And I just started to really like my KOLs. And I would notice that other people like them. And I would say, oh, this person's speaking here. Maybe they should be on our speakers bureau, or maybe they should do this. And because of that, I would start talking in marketing. I would start, I would have engagements. I would bring our medical directors to come and go to dinner with them. But it was because I could see them as people. And I think that to me has served me very well. And I always encourage any new MSLs or people new to medical affairs that yes, your big brain is important. Having a D degree is important. When you're in a room of all D degrees, it's important to separate yourself. You get to see people as people. And I think that is the thing that I'm most proud that I was able to keep of myself and bring myself. Whenever I present, I can never present like, and then on slide 3, when I did that, I had awful presentations. But when I just talked to them, I could really make an impact. And I think for me, making an impact is my number one goal. And I want to make impact in my department and my organization. And Mary knows this. I only take jobs or positions where I feel connected to the organization. And that's important to the fabric of me as a person. And Mary would say, Marsie, I found your people. I found your people. And she would be right. She would know that it was about the people for me. And so I would say that my journey, that mindset is what has led me to where I am today. The role was created because there was an identification of the need for the organization. And so the role was created for our organization because we identified a gap. And based on my relationships and based on what I was able to bring to the organization for many years in terms of relationships and building alliances, I was already doing the job. I think it was easier to see me fulfilling this gap and with my skill set. And so to back up in terms of how it kind of even came to be, I called the chief corporate affairs officer because I didn't know anything about what corporate affairs did. And I said, oh, she's fabulous. She's the most amazing person. She's near and dear to me. I called her or emailed her and said, can we talk? I was just curious. And I said, I'm curious what you guys do. Can you tell me? And then we talked and we just connected on a way that was from person to person, woman to woman, mother to mother, all the things that we are more alike than we are different, all of us, right? And so I said, will you be my mentor? Will you mentor me? And I also said, I have no idea what that looks like. I would like to just stay curious and open if you are, and if we could figure it out. She mentored me for about a year, and through just talking to me and also getting support from my leadership, from Chad, from Chi, at the time, it is being okay with not knowing what it looks like. We didn't know until we started to see what some of these relationships. I introduced her to some of the relationships I had that helped them in corporate affairs and building our brand, building our awareness. And she recognized that, yes, we were doing great in patient advocacy, phenomenal, building these strong relationships. But we didn't have relationships with these professional organizations. We had it when we were doing for marketing, for exhibits, and we had it when we were doing abstracts or posters. But for the rest of the 11 months, no one heard from us. We had no relationships. And there were so many organizations where we just were maybe cold calling, or they didn't know who Harmony was. And it's important to build those relationships. And we've done a phenomenal job over the last 3 years of building our brand reputation and our culture through these relationships with these professional organizations and building these alliances. And so just identified that there was a gap. You had patient advocacy on one side of the coin, but there was missing the other side. And so alliance development is the other side of the coin for patient advocacy.
So talk more. So that's really good, and thanks for the reminder on that. So on your journey with that, yes, your boss is an amazing, phenomenal person. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Talking about the needs, so tell us more, in essence, about the primary objective that you're trying to achieve in this role. So can you give an example of how you've brought that together? I think. And here is why I asked that question, because we talk about being a scientific bridge. Field medical's role is to do that. And the things that I always try to empower my team with when I was leading a team was, hey, look for the opportunities that are where your providers are passionate about, right? Is it around health equity? Is it around whatever it is? It's more than just our data. Look for ways to be able to connect within the organization to really find that partnership. So tell us more about the primary objective, and can you share an example of how you've been able to move that forward?
So the primary objective is to really establish our organization, right? So to have them to build awareness about the organization, to find opportunities to engage with leadership in those professional organizations, to find opportunities for our other partners. So whether it's marketing, whether it's medical, whether it's clinical, to be the eyes and ears where there are opportunities for our cross-functional colleagues to also engage. For instance, if I join a corporate advisory board, what's the makeup of the board? What are they talking about? Is it better for me to sit on that board, or is it better for someone from clinical, someone from medical, or someone from marketing, where they can be in the room? So working in rare disease, whether they're talking about, let's say, sleep in general, right? That does not necessarily mean they're going to talk about narcolepsy or talk about rare sleep disorders. Rare disease is not always brought up in the room. And so to be able to be in the room where you could be like, have you guys thought about, you're talking about sleep. Are you also talking about rare disease? Are you also going to bring in the voice of the patient? And so if we are not in the room, oftentimes those conversations are left behind. So then when we come to the exhibit hall, there's been no continuity for who is Harmony? Who is this company? What do you bring to the table? But if you have been showing up for the members of this organization, if you've done a webinar, if you engage with them in this corporate advisory board, if you talk to the people who serve on the committees, who are also the clinicians, the thought leaders in the field, right? There's this continuity because that's the makeup of the leaders in these professional organizations. They are also clinicians. They volunteer on these committees. They volunteer doing this. And so the more that you can advocate for the people and the communities that you serve, the more that those communities will rise. So, for example, with the American Academy of Neurology, where their bread and butter has been epilepsy and multiple sclerosis. Over the last 3 years, you have seen a rise in the topics of sleep because we serve on the industry roundtable. I meet with their leaders monthly. I talk to the people who are served on their committees. And now we are a rare neurological disease company, right? So we're in rare epilepsy, we're in neurobehavioral, we're in rare sleep. And therefore, that's where all those disorders converge in neurology. So now I can go to leadership and just now listening for other disease states because of the relationship that I've built over the last 3 years.
The discussion where you were talking about making sure that you're sitting on corporate ad boards, and the point of the people who are running these organizations are clinicians, and the more they know about you, the more they understand like why you're even at the conference and what do you do, so being able to do something transformative like that within an organization like the AAN, where they're not just talking about MS and epilepsy or Parkinson's, that they're now talking about sleep disorders. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating to me.
Most of these clinicians, or I call them thought leaders, so they're not necessarily KOLs. For me, they're thought leaders or provider advocates. They're doing the walks for epilepsy. They are working at community clinics. They are serving on boards. So those are, when I'm meeting them in their community setting, not necessarily in their clinic setting. So it doesn't, that's it. So I show value by seeing them as community advocates.
That makes sense.
So you were talking a little bit about the importance of working cross-functionally. So who all are you, with your internal counterparts? What are the departments you work with primarily?
All of them. So medical, clinical, marketing. And I have monthly pods where I bring everyone together and we do talk tactics. We do say overarching, this is what we're doing. We're all going to this meeting. This is what we're doing. We're sponsoring this. We're doing this. Where it's not just a list, but it is so that everybody can see like, oh, we're engaging with this organization like this. This is how we're showing up as one company, so that they don't just see themselves and their function just doing one thing, right? So it's like, oh, we're going as a unit and we have these objectives as a unit, and we're going to come back together afterwards as a unit and say key learnings. So it's more of a, I get joy from the group. That's what I love. I love a team. I'm a team person for sure, as you know. Just not, yeah. Chad. I love our team. I thrive in a team setting.
So I can see you being your role being a really important pivot point between all these other departments. Which department do you feel like you rely on things from the most, or is it still pretty equal?
I would say it's equal. I think medical, because knowing where scientific content that we may have or where we are going scientifically, like medical, clinical is important. Also lean heavily on my corporate affairs team, and greatest team in the world, like in terms of communication, in terms of patient advocacy. All those things start to come into play. It takes all these little nuggets. We call them like the breadcrumbs. Like they all matter into how I engage and how I'm trying to knock on doors or listen to certain conversations. Not eavesdrop, but just but just like when I'm in a room, if there's a group of people, I'm listening and very intently to just how other relationships are going.
And these organizations, these professional organizations, as well as the patient advocacy organizations and foundations, are extremely influential. And so these relationships that you've developed are critical, right? I mean, so for somebody who is looking for a career, and so like that's kind of like my piece of what we do here in the podcast, is talking about when people are kind of figuring out where they can go with their career. If you're looking for something that's truly meaningful and that is impacting the success of a company or a product or patients' lives, you're in a very essential, impactful spot.
As our listeners are thinking about other opportunities beyond what they're currently doing, to better understand your role and things, to think, hey, I may have the skill sets to be able to be successful in this. What are the key things that really make the magic for you in this?
I would say the ability and the desire to work across the aisle. Cross-functional engagement is imperative. To be able to lead conversations, like I said, I lead monthly pods where I bring everyone together, and we have like just a rundown of all the things. So to be able to organize it in a way that it's not just a list of, oh, I'm talking to this company. Like I would like to really have a strategic way of looking at how you engage. So strategic, also the ability to work cross-functionally to bring people together for a specific purpose, not just put meetings on a calendar, I think, and also to be able to parse out information that is relevant, that will be relevant for my chief corporate affairs officer, maybe relevant for chief medical officer, relevant. So it's relevant to the business, relevant to where the company is going. So you kind of have to be where you are, right? So operate where your company currently is, but also understand that you are the one that's opening doors, paving the way for the future for your company. It's like, that if you're going into a certain therapeutic area, you guys don't know anyone there. Same way when we're deployed as MSLs, talking about disease state, you are preparing the community in your organization for being in a community and in a disease state. And so for me, as I'm looking at some of these conferences, I'm very investigative. I'm looking to see, what are they talking about now? What are they, when I talk to the leaders of these organizations, I ask them, so what's on the horizon? Have you guys thought about this? Oh yeah, we have talked about epilepsy, but do you talk about rare? Where does your rare disease sit? So just curious, asking. And they're like, we should do this. We were thinking about this. You find that sometimes they're already, if you're in the ballpark, they're already thinking about it. And you ask them, well, how do you engage with industry?
This is, I think you said something a minute ago that really kind of resonated with me. I think about the analogy of the MSLs preparing the market, if you will, by sharing disease states. So your role not only does things from an external standpoint, but then it also helps prepare companies to take them on different journeys as well too, right? Expanding horizons, where you might want to go. It helps inform those for future decision making from an internal standpoint as well too. That's really cool that you get to make impact both from an external standpoint as well as internal from your strategic thinking. So that's fun. So, all right. So finish this sentence for me, Marsie. My week feels successful when I blank.
Well, that's good. So my week feels successful when I have identified key contexts that can make an impact in our global organization.
I love it. That's great. You didn't even
also when I've done my expense report on time. So that
listen.
That also makes me feel like I had successful.
That brings back a visceral reaction. That gives me a visceral reaction when you say that, Marsie. Always trying to stay on top of you for expense reports. We know that administrative work is
hello.
Yeah. that was an area of opportunity. Let's just call it that, right?
That opportunity remains the same for me.
So funny. Any other questions? Or Mary, let me pause there.
I have at least two. So talking about, areas of opportunity. Where do you see opportunities for your role to make impact that's maybe not part of your job description right this second? Compliantly.
So, of course, compliantly. Because we are a growing organization and we have grown like very fast, slow. And then the last, year and a half, very fast. So part of what I listen for in meetings, is what is our timeline for clinical? What are we doing? Was our marketing timeline? What are some of the scientific information that we need? I'm listening so that I can, when I'm in other meetings, when I am the one attending most of the professional organization meetings, professional societies, big and small. So from AAN to a little bitty regional meeting, I will go to be able to listen to what we're saying internally and then go to these meetings and listen to what they're saying, but also look for opportunities that connect. That I'm still the bridge. In medical, we're the bridge, right? We bring the outside world inside. We bring the inside world outside. We're the place where all this crosses, right? And so if we are not a good bridge, then sometimes you can only get information one way. If we just get information while we're out, what good is it going to do if our internal colleagues don't have the information? And so what I do is I can listen to what they're saying internally and then listen when I'm in these meetings and see if they're talking about it, but also find opportunities to get this information in there, to be the bridge for that information to cross over into that community. And so that's really how my role has a great impact. I also leverage all my other colleagues. I will also ask, do you have a relationship with this clinician? I heard him speak here. So it's all about, not necessarily being the hero of the story, but how do I bring the right people in? I'm always have to know the when and the who.
Yeah, I have always loved your way with words. You're just, and I don't even know if you realize sometimes some of the things that you say, but I always do. And I think I love what you just said. I'm looking for ways to bring the inside outside and the outside inside, because I'm that bridge. So, that really packages it up really well. So here's my last question. What do you say to companies who do not have this function?
It is a lost opportunity. I believe that wholeheartedly. I'm more so every time, because if you're only going when there is a conference, you're missing so much opportunity to engage in a meaningful way for clinicians who are going to be out there teaching and prescribing and all the things with the people and the community that you want to ultimately help and support. And so I think it's unfortunate that not more organizations have this role. And sometimes it lives in medical affairs, which I think is awesome. But I think it's an imperative role. I'm biased, but just given the impact I've been able to make from an organizational perspective, I think it is a role that is desperately needed for more organizations to have. That's my pitch.
Well, we need to be able to multiply the Marsie Rosses in the world. That's my biggest takeaway. I think that you the energy that you bring is phenomenal, and yes, you've done great work, and you're going to continue to do great work.
And I'm so
at your
proud
company.
of you.
I know.
I've had amazing leaders in my life, and I'm so thankful to you, Chad, you, Mary. It's like I just can be, and that is a privilege and a blessing. Is that somebody can see your zany, brainy ideas and say, "Okay, well, let's see." Because I'm definitely about 30,000 feet to about 10,000, and I don't work well in the minutia. I don't like those little things. I can execute, but I also needed my team. I'm just someone who really appreciates people who have an eye for detail. And I lean into those relationships. And I think, leveraging your community is key to success in any role that you're in. So I appreciate you guys so much.
You, one thing I'll add is you don't fear failure, and you're not afraid to try things that are, maybe out of the ordinary. And a lot of that speaks just to your ability to navigate conversations, the relationship development, again, that you have, the energy that you bring, and then the successes that come from it. Again, I just go back to the idea of even being able to help the organization identify this gap that was there and then being able to close it. I know that makes you feel proud. It makes you feel passionate and continues to make you want to come to work every day. So, Marsie, thanks so much for taking time just to share a little bit about your journey, where you are now, how to stay curious and content. That's really good advice, as well as the other things that you shared. We got to have you back on the show sometime soon, Marsie, if you will.
Thank you both so much. And I just think that having the right leadership, having the right leader in your corner, it just means everything. And I encourage everyone to get a mentor that you can share and be honest with and not have the answers and, be vulnerable with. It's so important. It really, really is important. So thank you for what you guys are doing. I really appreciate the opportunity to share and to listen to you guys. It's fun.
Well, thanks again. And thanks again to our listeners for joining us for another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles. just as a reminder, leaders don't develop in isolation. Leaders learn from leaders. And that's the venue that we have aimed to provide for you. And know that we have and we'll continue to bring great guests like Marsie, who we had on today. So until next time, have a great one, lead well, and walk worthy.